Hello, everyone. Brandon Ferdig here with Minnesota Blockchain, and this is the Minnesota Blockchain Conversations Podcast, Episode 1 from right here at Quantum Lex Studios at the Quantum Lex Law Firm in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Now, on this first episode, I sit down with Grant Cermak. Grant is a Twin Cities resident and has long been in the blockchain space as a software developer, and now he's the co-founder of a successful hardware company in the blockchain space, the Evergreen Miner on the Chia network. They've sold a lot of units of this device, so we talk with him about what it's been like creating this device, about being a successful startup founder, entrepreneur in the blockchain industry. And then we sit back and talk a little bit about blockchain in general, his thoughts on the industry, the market that we're in right now, some theory without getting in too deep about proof of work, proof of stake, this kind of thing. And then we talk a little bit about our past in politics, because that's how he and I met 15 years ago. So it also made him an appropriate first guest for this show, because I interviewed Grant 15 years ago when I had a cable access show in Minneapolis. And we pull that up for the viewers of this podcast. We pull that up on YouTube and have it superimposed on the screen. So you'll see him and I when our haircuts were a lot different, when we were 15 years younger in our 20s. So enjoy that blast from the past. Enjoy our conversation about blockchain and Grant's journey as a blockchain entrepreneur here in the Twin Cities. So thanks for being here for our first episode. Hope you enjoy it. And thanks again. Grant, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Episode number 1.
Episode 1. Love this.
Yeah, and this is a blast from the past.
That's right.
We'll pull that up in a little bit here. But I'm Brandon Ferdig with Minnesota Blockchain Initiative, and this is episode number 1 of our new podcast. I've been having conversations with people, even just right here in Minnesota, one of 50 states in the U.S., and there's crypto and blockchain and all kinds of Web3 activity across the country. There's a lot happening in every state of the union, and Minnesota is certainly no exception to that. And so we're having conversations all the time, and we thought, let's record them. And I have a past with some journalism and some podcasting and some interviewing with you from 15 years ago when you ran for office. A lifetime ago.
It feels like it.
Yeah, I can't wait to pull that up that old YouTube video. But we're back because you're also now into the Web3 blockchain world with your own company, your own product. So I guess say hi, introduce yourself, and then let's talk about what you're up to.
Sure. My name is Grant Cermak. So I'm the CEO of Evergreen Miner, co-founder of the company. So I got connected with my co-founder, Dylan, and our mission was to make crypto easier, right? It's just, if you think about crypto and the experiences many have had with crypto, it's difficult and cumbersome. There's a lot of moving parts, and you're not really sure how you're supposed to do it. And especially if you want to get into running the infrastructure of blockchain, which is typically through something called mining, then it can be even more daunting and challenging. So the idea behind Evergreen is make crypto much easier to use for anyone to do at home, even if you have high electricity prices. And that last one is really key, because electricity prices are the market dynamic that has driven a lot of people out of doing this at home and has trended some of the industry towards centralization. We can get into a couple of those things, but really the cryptos that have taken off and that have found a lot of traction in the marketplace is the ones that enabled this ability to integrate with the infrastructure at home. So that's what this device allows you to do, is run it at home, because it uses almost no electricity. It's really invariant to the price of electricity because it's using so little electricity to run the network.
Yeah, this is for the person who isn't just interested in crypto as an investment or as a tool for playing with some DeFi or some Web3 games. This is someone who also wants to mine, right?
Well, mining is a way to get rewarded for doing something, right? If you think about what a blockchain is, it has a distribution to it, like a decentralization. And that decentralization enables the network to function. Like that's where the actual blockchain is. Like think about a blockchain, it's just a database, right? And that database has many copies stored in a lot of different locations. And so you're rewarded for not only replicating that database, but also for helping to produce the continual state of the database that keeps track of everybody's accounts, right? Like how many coins or how much you have in your account. And all of them work this way at some fundamental level. And so when you're mining, you're participating in that and you're being rewarded for the work that you're doing. Now, the only work you're really doing is you're giving a little bit of real estate within your home, and you're paying for some electricity and the internet connection. And that decentralization is what allows blockchain to be something different, because if we were to think about a centralized way of accounting, that's what we already had.
Yeah,
like,
right.
There's nothing new there, right?
I'm just wondering how many people, I guess at the retail level, is really interested, the everyday person, whatever,
in mining. It was one of the most popular things to do.
And you sold a lot of units, so obviously there's some demand.
There's still demand. If you look at what took Bitcoin and Ethereum from being nascent technologies to widely adopted, it's mining that did that. That's the initial market penetration, because if you were to participate in mining, now you have some of the coin. Like you want a broad swath of people to have the coins, you want a lot of people to have some of the crypto, then now you have an economy, you have participation. If only 2 people in the world have it, that's nothing. That's not what you want. You need distribution of the coins.
So mining as a tool for helping the technology catch on.
Yeah, it's a networking effect for sure. And the top crypto, right? If you look at all the crypto that exists, the top 2 are still Bitcoin and Ethereum. And you got to ask yourself, why is that? Well, they have a little bit of first mover advantage, but they also found that they had a participation within the network.
Right.
That participation is what enabled them to take off in a very substantive way.
Now, but like Cardano, Solana, they're in the top 5, I think. They don't have mining, correct?
Yeah, they're different kind of technologies. So Solana, it requires a really powerful machine to do it, right? Because it's such a high-speed chain. And by high speed, what we mean is it's running really, really fast in the way that it's producing the state of the database. So like it's enabling very fast change, and because of that, you need to have a very fast internet connection. You have to have really fast computer to be able to continuously process that ledger operating in that speed. Whereas Bitcoin is much different. It produces a block every 10 minutes. It's not growing that fast, and you can run it on a very low end machine. So yeah, Solana and Cardano have a different kind of consensus mechanism. They're not like in the way that you would think about Bitcoin and Ethereum as a miner that you would run in your home.
Yeah, I'm not trying to push back. I'm just trying to point out that, or put into context the idea that mining as a good first step for a cryptocurrency to become adopted. That was the case with Ethereum and Bitcoin.
Oh, I see. We're talking about what's driven like the next wave of like how the rest of these. Yeah, I think the market has started to really gravitate in some ways towards not decentralized crypto, which is surprising and shocking to people who, this was what they set out to do, was to make something decentralized, to say, oh, well, people would gravitate back towards centralization. But I think that is what maybe we would call the degen mindset. Like there are a lot of ways chasing like a casino and like gains by flipping tokens amongst themselves, and it's a very different kind of a idea for like what crypto can and should be.
Well, it's the Solana users, it's the Cardano users, and now it's the Ethereum users who Ethereum doesn't mine anymore.
Right.
That I think are, so the celebrities bought the Bored Apes, right? They wanted the NFT. And Gary Vee uses Ethereum-based technology, I think. I'm pretty sure he does for his NFTs. Like it's that popular adoption, the mainstreamification of cryptocurrency has not included that holistic or comprehensive miner to wallet kind of mindset as much. It's just, I want some quick crypto, either to get a quick gain or to use it as a tool so I can get my own Bored Ape or whatever NFT you want to be, and I want to be part of that community, that club, right? It's just more popular and pop culture based and that kind of thing. So that's what made me like wonder, okay, how many people are really interested in mining anymore? But that's why I'm really interested in your product, because you're here to say a lot of people are and then correct me if I'm wrong, but you're also here to say, and we're the best solution for an all-in-one product for mining and to custody your crypto.
So what we set out to do was to make this easier. If you think about what you were just describing, right? The users who are getting into Solana and Cardano and a lot of this other stuff. If you look at the path to that, the first thing you're going to have to do is acquire some of that token somewhere. So you're going to go to something like Kraken or Coinbase or whatever, and they're going to make you do KYC and connect your bank account. And there's going to be all this friction to getting to the first point when you can do something. Then the next thing you have to do is you have to figure out, well, like, how do I actually like take control of these coins? Like, you can just trade it inside a Coinbase or Kraken, but if you want to do more esoteric stuff, you might need to get MetaMask or a Phantom wallet. You have to do some more work. And then now you're navigating gas fees and trying to figure out NFTs and not getting everything lost because, you know, you're participating in these markets which have some coins and contracts which are shaky or unstable or whatever, and people are getting hacked and losing money, and there's a lot of weird stuff going on. If you consider the path towards how do you get into crypto with something like Evergreen, you buy the device, you plug it in, you wait 2 days, and then you have some coins. Like, that's the difference, and that's what we set out to do as like a different thing. So we have completely vertically integrated software and hardware, which means when you get into our system, we sort of put it on easy mode for you so that you plug in a few cables and then you tap a few times, kind of like setting up a Ring doorbell, and then you wait for a period of time, and then all of a sudden you have some coins. And you didn't have to do KYC, you didn't have to go sign up for an account, you didn't have to connect your bank account. That's what you've done, and now you have some of this crypto. And if you want to now participate in the ecosystem and get further out, you don't have to do anything else to get that.
You're growing your own food.
You're growing your own food, and you're providing the security for the network. So you might ask, well, like, why would I want to do that? Like, what would be the point of it? Well, this is a hard drive based miner, and the hard drives use almost no electricity, and they have a really long shelf life. Like, they're nominally not doing anything.
So why don't you lift that up? That's the actual miner, the orange?
Yeah, well, so what I'm showing here, or what we've got with us, is this is some digital collectibles. So we can talk about that in a minute, so I'll just kind of put those to the side. I have this out. It's an orange injection molded case for the hard drive. And I'll definitely show that in a second as well. But I think one of the easiest ways to do this is just to show you what it's like to open this box, right? When we open this box, it's like, it says, hey, scan this and here you go. There's not a lot of instructions. There's not an instruction manual. And it comes in this nice box. You know, it's like...
Thank you for putting a period at the end of that sentence. Because I see all the time, like, a tech company will try to be minimalist and cool and say, like, your journey has begun or something. And then there's no period at the end of the sentence. I'm like, that's a complete sentence. It needs a period.
Nice.
So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So this is the device, right? So when you get it, here's what you're going to see and be presented with on the back. There's a computer on top and then a hard drive.
I'm just going to make sure the camera's capturing that.
Sure.
Yep. Okay. Good.
Yep. So as far as setting it up, this is the computer. If you've ever owned something like a Mac Mini or anything like that, it's about the same kind of a form factor. It's pretty light, and it's got a couple of USB ports, an Ethernet port, and then a power cable. Pretty much when you get this, there's only one cable that can go in one spot. You can't plug it in wrong, right? So this is the data cable for plugging it in. You plug in the USB cable to the top here, and then look, there's only one spot where it can go. So here, there's only one place the cable can go. And once you connect it to power, and you either connect it to Ethernet or Wi-Fi, and that's it. You're
so
pretty
you
much
need
done.
both components?
So the computer, and then you need some number of hard drives. So that's how it works. So
Okay.
what we would then be doing is just plugging in power to both of these. So you'd have something like this, and then that would go out to the wall, and then that's it. It's pretty much hooked up.
How does it get online?
So you either connect the Ethernet cable or you connect it to Wi-Fi in your house.
And does that run all through an app?
Yep, that's all through the app, kind of like setting up a Ring doorbell. So
And is the app also where your crypto will show up? So the app is also a wallet?
the app is also a self-custody wallet.
And it's Chia.
And yes, so this is the Chia network. So Chia is a novel Nakamoto consensus, and that sounds scary and daunting, but what that really means is the inventors of Chia came up with another way to do a proof of work chain. So proof of work meaning there's something that everybody is going to do to produce the consensus of the chain, and that's how we're going to do it. So the proof of work is the way that you prevent people from trying to game the system.
Right.
You have to prove that you've done something, and that thing that you've done is hard to do, and everybody is trying to do it, and if you can do it, then you get a reward for the fact that you produce the next block.
Right. I think generally people understand the trade-offs between, because you can compare it to physical things in the real world, like, well, I can have a safe that's really easy to open, but then it's really easy for a criminal to open it. So if I have a safe that requires 3 keys, 2 fingerprints, and a combination, it's a pain, but I know no one's going to break into it. And so it's kind of like that with these blockchains where there's mining, right? Like, yes, like let's take Bitcoin. Yes, it's work intensive, it's electricity intensive, power intensive, but that's what helps us assure that it's secure,
Yep.
and valuable, right? There's a lot of work behind it. So I'm interested, and then people I think vaguely understand that, well, Ethereum has found a way to secure the network without requiring mining, and that's a good thing. And then people would push back and say, yeah, but more if you got more coins, you've got more sway. And so there's the debate, right, around, it's becoming centralized, because if you have more tokens, you have more staking, you have more all that.
So when you have something like proof of stake, you have the ability to influence the network based purely on money. Like, you don't have to do anything. You just have to amass a certain amount of money, and if you can do that, then you can start to exert influence on the network.
Right.
In Bitcoin, you can't take money and exert influence on the network. What you need to do is you need to take money and then acquire hardware and then hook up that hardware and actually participate.
Yep.
And if you can do it to a level that allows you to have more than 51% of the network or a certain number of colluders, then you're able to do something nefarious to the system. And they refer to that as sort of the overall security of the network. So proof of work is a different kind of security than proof of stake, because it requires you to actually do something in the real world. Which is a much more difficult task.
I see both of them having a barrier to entry. Like, I think the minimal amount of proof of stake, you need 32 Ethereum, or maybe you can join a pool. But Ethereum's expensive, and you need some of it, maybe a significant amount of it to stake. With Bitcoin, now you need a lot of servers, right? You need a big amount of computer power, so the barrier to entry is pretty high. What I'm interested in with Chia is how they've seemed to have found the ability to retain mining as a security and consensus protocol, and yet have done it in a way where it's very energy
efficient.
Yeah. So I don't know if that gets too technical and into the weeds. We don't have to really go there. But if you have a quick answer for that, I'd love to hear it.
We're talking about, so the total energy efficiency of Chia compared to Bitcoin is it uses about 1/1000th the energy of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Or roughly either the same amount of security or 10x the security. And there's an interesting thing going on in Chia right now, and this might be too deep into the weeds, but you can think about it like that. It uses 1/1000th the energy. The way that it has accomplished this is by taking the energy intensive part of Bitcoin and doing it once. So if you think about what a hard drive does, is it stores data in a persistent way. It's what we refer to as persistent storage. That means that if you turn your computer off and then turn it back on, your data is still there. It persists over time. That's what a hard drive will do for you. So if you think about what Bitcoin's doing, let's just think about it like it's solving a really hard math problem. It's hashing, right? You could reuse those hashes, right? I mean, like, why couldn't you? It's like you're computed them once, like you could save them off to the hard drive. And then when somebody asks you, do you have the right solution? Is it on my hard drive already? That is, in a nutshell, what Chia is doing. Now, it's much more technical and nuanced than that, but you can think about it that way, as just like we've taken all those hashes and cached them to the hard drive.
Would it be like saving your progress in a video game?
Yeah,
Bitcoin has you start over from the beginning every time. And
Bitcoin, it's like they completely ignoring the fact that we have a thing called persistent storage. It's like every time it's just starting from scratch and trying to figure out whether it can find the right solution, and never considering that you could retry the stuff that you had in the past, because now you have a new challenge. Okay.
This is probably where Bitcoin, like maximalists, real strong Bitcoin supporters would wish I would jump in with some sort of retort, but I'm
there's
not
no challenge. No, there's no challenge to this. Like this really does work. Like,
oh, now I wish I had a Bitcoin maximalist here to challenge you, because I'm sure there is. I'm sure there's some reason why they would push back and say, well, the reason why we don't have the persistent, or is that the word you used? Yeah, is because of X, Y, Z. I don't know that reasoning, so I can't bring it up right now. So I won't even try. I'll have to have on a Bitcoin maximalist sometime to talk about it. Okay.
So what we've got on the screen is this is a different unit than the one that we have here in the studio. So in the studio, what I've got is one hard drive, and then what we have on the screen is 4 hard drives. So every one of our setups, every one of the packages that we sell come with one computer, and the computer typically goes on top. And that's because this thing runs a little bit hotter, and it's also lighter. So usually you want the heavier stuff on the bottom. It just provides for better stability. That computer can support anywhere from 15 to about 25 hard drives. So it means if you buy that unit, or if you buy the single drive unit, you can actually expand it without having to buy another computer, which is another cool thing about the way that this system is set up. Is you can start with a smaller amount of money that you've bought equipment, and you can expand it if you're deciding you really like it. Which is different from the way that Bitcoin and Ethereum mining have worked. When you buy one of those units, if you want to scale out, you just buy another unit. You can't reuse part of the unit and like incrementally get a little bit more. With this, you can. And as we've gone through cycles of more dense hard drives, the hard drive becomes more valuable over time. Right. So when we were initially selling these, we were selling 16 terabyte hard drives. Now we sell 20 terabyte hard drives, and we sell them with compression. So the drives that we were originally selling, they're still in service. They're still working great. But the newer ones that we have been able to sell have even more hashing power essentially cached into them. So they produce more Chia per unit time, the more dense hard drive you have. Because every hard drive uses roughly the same amount of electricity, which is about 8 watts.
How much is that?
8 watts. If you look at one of your LED light bulbs, it's using a little bit less than that.
The old-fashioned LED?
No. So the old-fashioned ones, that was the incandescent light bulbs. That would have been like a 60 watt or a 90 watt light bulb. That unit uses less than that one light bulb, that incandescent light bulb. But if you look at like maybe 2 of those hard drives, it'd use about as much as an LED light bulb.
Okay, got it. So negligible.
Like if you plug one of these things in on your home, you're not even going to see any appreciable change.
And the fact that it's mining Chia, which is, a lot of people haven't heard of it. It's a more obscure blockchain out there. You know, has that been a hurdle, or?
Well, so with our newest unit in the pool that we're working with, you can take your earnings in any crypto you want. So they will do the swap for you. So if you want to buy one of these and you say, I don't know about this Chia thing, I'm interested in getting some crypto, I want BTC, you can go in, configure the pool, and you'll get payouts in BTC.
But you are still mining on Chia.
You're securing the Chia network, but you're getting paid.
And is Chia like Solana in that it's not one of the big two, but it's also significant in that it's got its own gaming NFT world, its own DeFi world, its own, like Solana has its own infrastructure, its own community, its own Discords, its own everything.
Yep.
And that's a very, that and Cardano are way up there right behind Ethereum. But I don't know, Chia would be a little further back in the pack, but it's also got its own culture and
it
all
does.
That.
Yep. So there's an ecosystem on Chia. There's NFTs. So people have been making collections and selling them and minting them. So all of that's happening. There's tokens. So just as there is in Ethereum, you've got ERC20s and these different types of tokens. And on Solana, you have different types of tokens. There's an equivalent thing on Chia. One of the big users of Chia right now is actually World Bank. So they're using the Chia blockchain to do carbon registry, carbon tokenization, and carbon retirement. So this is like the world organization, and every single country on the planet has a Chia wallet because they're participating.
Is that strange bedfellows?
It's not if you think about the fact that this blockchain is highly secure and energy efficient, right? Like if you're going to talk about a carbon trading platform, does it really make sense to do it on Bitcoin, which, has carbon emissions that some people would find objectionable?
Right, but it's the idea that when you first started speaking, it was about, we should be mining our own crypto, and we should embrace decentralization. And now you're talking about them working with the World Bank.
So when we talk about them working, right, this is a peer-to-peer permissionless blockchain. So once that little boat had been floated out into the river, there's no taking it back. Like either the people who are running the network, which are the people who have these devices, either they shut them all off or they don't. And if they don't, then anybody can use it.
Sure.
So World Bank decided they wanted to use this network.
Right.
It's not like the miners went out and solicited for it.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's a knock on Chia. I do think though it's kind of strange bedfellows, but
but the bedfellows thing is the thing I'm picking up on, right?
Oh, where it sounds like there's a collusion or something.
No partnership here. It's like when you have a permissionless blockchain.
Yeah, maybe that was wrong phrase.
You can't stop people from doing whatever they want to do. Now this is interesting because in Bitcoin right now there's a big debate about should certain things be allowed on the Bitcoin network, right? People who want to gatekeep things that they find objectionable or unconscionable, and they say it's spam, it's an attack on the network. And so there's a big debate happening right now about whether they should be putting monkey pictures into the Bitcoin database, and they don't like it.
Right.
And there's some people who really are working hard to try to not have that happen anymore. So that's the
growing pains of mainstreamification.
That is a peer-to-peer blockchain. You cannot stop people who are following the rules from doing something that the chain allows you to do.
Well, they can try on that chain, and then people can fork it, so we'll see.
Yeah, we can get into that as a topic of discussion, but like as far as, can World Bank use this peer-to-peer network?
Yeah,
they certainly 100% can.
Right. Well, I have the same conflict around when people say, oh, the U.S. government should hold Bitcoin. I'm thinking, I don't want them with Bitcoin. That's my personal, and actually this could be a nice segue into our first interview because, I come at this, I'll just, I don't out myself, but, I'm more libertarian. I'm like, I find that the more at peace I am with myself, the less I feel like I can tell others what to do. And so I take that philosophy and I just expand on it and say, okay, well then I guess I'd prefer to live in a country that had very limited government. And then that's what brought me into libertarianism. That's not a foreign concept to a lot of people in crypto or tech or whatever. It's quite common, but that's how you and I met.
Yes.
And anyways, but about the Bitcoin thing is that I think the ethos of Bitcoin is decentralization and And then I look at some of the worst offenders of centralization and the amount of power that could be abused if you've got the ring of power. And I think of like the U.S. military and like some of the atrocities and the harms. And it's like, I don't want the U.S. government to have Bitcoin. Like, I think those are contradictions. I think those are not, you know, and if Bitcoin takes off, yeah, I'm aware. I was kind of hoping they'd sell it years ago or something, but they got a ton of Bitcoin from, and then they confiscated it, right?
They seized a lot
from Silk Road, right? And they got him locked up, Albert, in prison and for life, 2 life terms or something. It's absurd. And anyway, that's how you and I met, because we were both supporters of Ron Paul.
Yes.
Which is a whole other. I think that really opens up a new hallway of rooms of conversation about how he was really the first viral candidate.
Very much, in a lot of ways.
Talk about the power of the network effect and what the internet did. Ron Paul had that. He was underground, super popular. It didn't translate into a victory, but in some ways, he took Minnesota. With the caucus system here that we had back then.
Yeah. I think there are a lot of things that came out of it that haven't been well understood by people who weren't there and didn't know how it changed over time. Mm-hmm. I can definitely see, what happened in those times, right? Roughly 2007 to 2009, 2010, mm-hmm. When Ron Paul was running, and how that morphed into stuff that happened with the Tea Party. Right? I mean, those are the same people.
Yep.
A lot of them. Like, I'm not saying it's one-to-one.
Yeah, that was actually just before the financial crash.
Yep.
Which is what birthed Bitcoin.
Yes.
Roughly, right? Mm-hmm. But yes, that's 100% right.
So we've got sort of this was the scenario. Ron Paul talking a lot about the Federal Reserve and the fact that it's causing market distortions, and that the Federal Reserve needs to be reined in, abolished, and audited, whatever, like really wanting to put some clamps on that. And then we have the banking crisis that occurs. We have the collapse and the bailouts and whatever. And so there had been experiments with digital currencies prior to Bitcoin, right? There's a long history.
Remember the Liberty Dollar?
There's a lot of things like Hash Cash, eGold, like, there was a whole plethora of them. And I remember, like, during this time, like when I was very active politically, that people in my network were talking about Bitcoin. They said, hey, here's this Bitcoin thing.
Yeah.
And it was hard to see how it fit with the ideology that we had at the time, because it's like, well, we wanted hard money. We wanted a really hard money. We didn't understand that this was like the hardest of all hard monies. Like, we were still, hey, can we get back to gold, silver?
Yeah, can you hold it? We were all worried about a power outage, so we thought probably that Bitcoin. But I knew guys that, I remember seeing Facebook posts in like 2011. Oh yeah, I mined some Bitcoin. It's pretty cool, And I think we have a mutual friend who had a lot of Bitcoin. He sold it to go on a trip with his family. This was, I think he went to Turkey or Greece, if I remember correctly.
Interesting.
And if this was like 2012, yeah, I remember that. So yeah, I don't know. I bought a mattress with Bitcoin in like 2016.
Nice.
So that's like a $8,000 mattress probably now. That kind of thing. But I had a cable access show back then. Mm-hmm. We met. We were both Ron Paul guys, and I took a position within the local Republican Party to try to help Ron Paul's cause, and it really did well in Minneapolis, where there just aren't a lot of Republicans. But you went another direction. You actually ran for office.
I did. Yep.
So that's why.
And sought an endorsement. Was one of the first people that sought an endorsement from Ron Paul and got it.
Oh, cool. Mm-hmm. Was that when you ran for city council or state rep?
State rep.
Well, the state rep interview is what I have pulled up, what we have pulled up here.
I can't
So yeah, hit play. Let's get this thing going.
The blast from the past here.
Hello there.
I think you're looking pretty good there, man. That's great.
For Ward 4 in Minneapolis.
I had kind of the Rachel Maddow haircut there.
So this is me, clean shaven with shorter hair. Like now my hair is like down below my shoulders. Actually, before I started running for office, I had my hair long, but there were a lot of guys in the Republican Party that said, you will never get any traction with that hair. You got to cut it. So it was a compromise that I actually did, was to cut my hair when I first started running for office. I don't know if I'm talking over the audio, if this was important.
Does
you
it
wanted
capture
to
the
capture
audio? It doesn't?
Yeah, that's right. It's fun to.
No,
fun
I'm
to
just
see
curious.
clip
Does the screen capture the audio? Okay, not sure. I can dub it in after maybe, but
Going from a
that's so funny, that old studio. Well, first, how about the 4:3 ratio?
Yeah.
Got that old
You could definitely
aspect
tell,
ratio.
like we're using the tech that was available to us at the time for sure. And this was cable access. Like I don't even think YouTube was that big of a thing. Like putting something on YouTube wouldn't have even
and do you
necessarily.
see what I did there? Now people are gonna maybe look at this, but I used a pseudonym, and my pseudonym was Tester Beeford, and I don't know why I did that. I can't remember why I thought. I think I was trying to be like, I don't want to put it out there under my name, not because I was trying to be anonymous and sneaky. I just was kind of, what if people don't like it? I was kind of sheepish. I was kind of apprehensive about it, so I put it underneath a pseudonym, and Tester Beeford. Yeah, I just came up with that.
And I remember when you originally talked about your idea for the show, you said, I want to have more of like a Charlie Rose kind of a vibe to the show. And so I just thought that was great as like a way to help people have a touch point. It's like, oh, okay, I can understand where we're going with this.
Boy, so I got sober in like 2005, and I was just sort of, a reset in my life back then after college, and I watched a lot of Charlie Rose. And you clear your head, you stop partying, and suddenly you're watching late night PBS instead of out partying, I guess. And I'm like, I love this I love this stuff. Like, I love how he just sat there and could just be in the moment.
So NFTs, I think, have some amount of misunderstanding about what it's all about. For sure, it's just art that's part of the blockchain in some fashion. And that's either, a pointer to the data that's somewhere else, right? So some people are directly putting the art into the blockchain, and some people are saying, hey, the art is somewhere else. But as far as what is an NFT capable of doing, one thing that I really like about art, when you couple it with the blockchain, is you have a way to establish with certainty who produced it. That there's a thing called provenance, right? You know that you're getting a piece of art from a specific artist. I think that there's power in that. And then the next thing is in that chain of people who have owned it. So sometimes it's like, well, this was owned by Elon Musk at one point, or this was, owned by, a very important person. Like I have this piece now, and they had it in the past. So that ability to track the ownership of something over time and establish who is the one who created it, and do so in a way that's immutable and provable, that's a really powerful concept. And as far as like, how does it help an artist, right? If you think about an artist, especially when they're first getting started, right? Patronization of art was a huge thing in times past. Like, this is how artists like existed. If you think about some of the people who produced some of the greatest works of art, they didn't do so because they had mass appeal. They did so because there was some wealthy individual that said, I want you to continue to produce this because I think you're amazing, and what you're capable of producing should exist in the world, right? Like, your art needs to exist, and we want this type of thing to exist, and so I'm going to sponsor you. So NFTs in some fashion, I think, can enable this in a much more decentralized way. You find some art that you like, an artist that you appreciate, and they put out a collection. Buying that piece of art that they put on chain allows you to directly support that artist in the same way that buying their art, if you were to get the physical piece, would support that artist. The cooler thing is that now when you have a digital artifact, it can do something that has never been possible before. When an artist sold a painting, let's say that painting went up in value substantially, like some Monet or something like that, or like a Rembrandt or whatever. The art, when it appreciated in value, the person who saw the biggest gain was the person who held it and then sold it for a larger amount of money later. But the artist didn't participate in that.
Mm-hmm.
But now when we have digital artifacts that were produced early on, you can have something that is enforced by the smart contract. And so the artist can continually get a royalty.
Digital art on chain.
Digital art on chain.
Yeah.
The artist can get a royalty over time.
Right.
And so putting out an art collection and having a royalty associated with that collection where the royalties are enforced on chain can mean that as that art appreciates over time, like imagine if Taylor Swift, when she was just starting out, when she was a nascent artist, she had put out some collection, right? And maybe she put out like 300 or 400 pieces. What would those pieces be worth if she had put them out at the very beginning of her career and then some people were holding on to them? Now to have people who would say, hey, I want to have a piece of that history of Taylor Swift, whatever she had put out. You could imagine that those would be worth substantially more because at the time they might not have been worth much at all, and now they might be worth quite a bit. And then the artist would then be participating in the upside of that. Not that she needs it, but like you can imagine somebody who is more in the middle of their career, that might mean a lot more to them. And it might also fuel that now that they've gotten that extra royalty payment, they can do something that they were never capable of doing before because now they have the funding to do it.
That's right. Yeah. So by just, blockchain just does what the internet did. It adds more channels, more connections, more potentials and capabilities for people to connect in more ways. So in this case, it's financial, where I buy a piece of art from an artist, an NFT, they get the money, but then I sell it to you because it went up in some value, but you want it, and I get the money, and the artist gets a little bit of money, right? So it just continues to funnel money back to the creator, which then enables them to do more.
It really does reduce friction and allow for things that have never been capable of happening before.
Yep.
And if you think about when we had the transition of our economy to the internet-enabled economy, it was a similar type of revolution.
Yeah.
This is a similar type of revolution that's happening with Web3, that it allows for these kinds of things to occur.
Yep.
And really, it took us years to get to this point because it took us that long as humanity to understand the technology that had been produced and what was capable of being done on top of it.
Right.
It did take a while to figure this stuff out.
Well, in our lifetimes, it feels like a while. That's all relative, right? In history, it's a blink of an eye. But
well, we're just talking about like
many years.
If you think about Bitcoin being roughly 15 years old or whatever it is, 10, 15 years old. And now where we're at with the more advanced ways that we can interact with the blockchain, NFTs were not something you could do in Bitcoin early on.
Right.
All you could do is just transfer the coins back and forth.
Yep.
So we have more sophisticated things that we can do now that we weren't able to do then, and that's because we're utilizing the technology in more sophisticated ways at this point.
What trips me up is that it's like chemistry, but with digits or with ones and zeros, where it took us a while to figure out what chemicals to put together to make plastic or whatever. The potential was always there for Bitcoin as soon as the internet existed, but it took a while to realize how you could make something digital scarce, right, through the blockchain. That just took some figuring out.
It took a plethora of different technologies. There's a really nice graphic that I'll send you. Maybe you can splice it in, where it shows all the technology that was required from math, from different types of computing that were all needed to come together to enable Bitcoin to exist, right? It really does stand on the shoulders of giants. You needed to have at least a way to do a peer-to-peer network, which, prior to the internet, like there wasn't even a way you could conceptualize of doing that. Everything was point to point. It was like if I was going to have a conversation, we would pick up the phone, we'd be directly talking to each other. Now, when you talk about the internet, you can have distributed systems, but how do you actually build the distributed system that works and is able to act in a peer-to-peer way, not client to server, but like just client to client? It's a different way of doing it.
And then there's the things that get in the way of that. I don't even just mean figuring it out. Let's say you solve the problem, it's there. But how many hurdles does Bitcoin run into? Because of people are nervous about electric money, and there's some environmental pushback, but mostly it's institutional pushback, right? So like you're displacing the existing order, and so they're going to fight to keep it, right? So yeah, that's also what adds to the...
Michael Saylor, I think, does a good job of talking about this as far as like what is Bitcoin and like why is it important? Is it enforces digital scarcity, right? Like no other asset when faced with burgeoning demand doesn't create more of it. You know, like think about a stock, right? If there's an incredible demand for the stock, they'll split the stock, they'll issue more stock.
Right.
You know, they're inflating, they're taking away from the people that had it in the past, and they're capable of doing that at any time they want.
Yep.
So in the face of demand, usually you have an increased supply.
Right.
And that goes for metals and other things too. Like if there's an insatiable
More or
demand
less,
for
yeah.
gold,
Yep.
then they'll go dig up a bunch more of it.
Yep.
With Bitcoin, you can't go dig up a whole bunch more of it. There's not going to be any more of it. So it's a different kind of a asset class, and it's never existed before. You've never had an asset class that looked like that before.
Well, how are you doing though with Chia and the Evergreen miners? You know, we talked about it not being a top 5, top 10 market cap coin, but you've done well, right? You've sold several units.
Yeah, so we've found quite a bit of success with this. I think in a lot of ways because people that had participated in Bitcoin and Ethereum mining in the past, they can't do it anymore. Either because the chain switched off of it, like what we were talking about with Ethereum, they moved from proof of work to proof of stake. With Bitcoin, the reason people can't do it in their home as easily anymore is because you have to think about the amount of energy input, right? And whether it's profitable. So the canonical way of thinking about the profitability of mining is, am I earning more by running the miner than the cost of electricity?
Right.
And then what is the amortized cost over time of the gear that I had to buy, and how long can I run it? Like what's its lifetime? Right? That's the way you think about profitability. And for most Bitcoin miners, if you're not at something less than 5 cents per kilowatt hour electricity, you're not in a profitable situation.
And what's the standard rate?
Well, we in Minnesota are paying something like 12 to 15 cents per kilowatt hour.
Okay.
So it's way underwater.
Okay.
That's your like home residential price.
Yeah.
Now, if you've got solar panels that you got for free or whatever, you might have some amount of electricity that you can devote to this. But you know, if you're just talking about buying electricity straight off of the grid from Xcel Energy or whoever is selling you electricity, they're probably selling it to around 12 cents per kilowatt hour.
Okay, got it.
So if you were to run a Bitcoin miner at that electricity cost, you're essentially paying a premium for Bitcoin. Like you could go buy it cheaper. Like the money you would put towards electricity, you could buy more Bitcoin.
Right. Doesn't make sense to mine it. But again, in this case, it's different.
In this case, it is different because it's almost invariant to the price of electricity because it's using so little that it's more about the total lifetime of the equipment and then how much are you earning by participating in the security of that network.
And how many units have you sold?
So we've sold over 2,000 units to people, and so by unit I mean like a deployment of the computer and some amount of drives, not like just like 2,000 hard drives. We've sold like a lot of hard drives. Like we've sold probably 75 petabytes worth of total hard drives.
That means nothing to me.
So if you were to try to visualize that, a petabyte of hard drives is like this much.
Okay.
It kind of fits comfortably on the table, but it's an uncomfortable number of drives. Like if they were all in front of you, you'd be like, wow, that's a lot of drives, right?
Yeah.
That's 1 petabyte. So if you were to think about 75 of that relatively uncomfortable number of drives, it would probably fill this room.
Got it. You sold a lot of drives.
We've sold quite a few drives.
And tell me about, let's talk a little bit about you being an entrepreneur and putting this company together. Was it something where you were already farming Chia? They call it farming, right? And then you thought, hey, we can build upon this, or was it something where you wanted to build a product and then searched which chain you wanted to support?
So I've been involved in crypto since roughly 2015. So my first foray into crypto was largely in Ethereum. Like I didn't even start in Bitcoin. Really, I was exposed to Bitcoin. I hadn't really messed around with it. I tried mining a couple times. I really didn't understand it well. I completely missed the boat on Bitcoin when I first saw it. So even though I was talking about it with friends, I didn't hold it. I wasn't participating in the economy, and I wasn't coding on it. So the first chance that I had to work with blockchain as a technology was Ethereum. And I was doing that in a startup company. It was actually a medical imaging company, and we were using the technology to solve a real world problem. So that's how we first approached it. And I found the technology fascinating.
Because you're a software developer.
Because I'm a software developer.
Yeah, we should probably say that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So by trade, yes, I'm a software developer. I've been, coding, banging on the keyboard for roughly 20 years. Is my career in software engineering and development. Yep. So 2015 is my first chance to get my hands on the technology, working with Ethereum. And it was at that time, in roughly 2017, that I was first exposed to Chia, because we found Ethereum unsuitable to solve the problem that we wanted to solve. Like, the technology worked, but there were a bunch of factors that made it not feasible to launch a company on top of it. Like, the business model didn't work with the amount of data we wanted to utilize on chain, the cost of Ethereum, data storage in Ethereum, and then gas fees, right? Just like the whole idea of using it, it was too expensive to use that particular product, even when Ethereum was 10 times cheaper than it is now. At $300 Ethereum, it still didn't work. We couldn't make it work for the problem we were trying to solve.
Okay.
So we started looking to see, is there...
Because the gas fees?
Because what we were trying to do was have a medical imaging study, like a CT scan of your chest, be addressable via the blockchain. We calculated the cost, and it was roughly $1 to make it one study addressable. And then if you need to make changes to the access control of that study, like say, I want you to be able to see it, right? Well, to do that, you need to be able to make a change on the database that says you should be able to access it. At least that's the way we designed it. Now, whether there's a different way to do that is not necessarily something we need to talk about today, but this is the way we designed it and said we were actually managing access control on the blockchain. So we would store a place where the data was, a URL, and then we would have the access control list. And so with those two things together, we could allow you to have access to that data whenever it was appropriate. So you might say, I want to grant you access because you're a referring physician. I might want to grant you access because you paid for access to that data.
Right.
Like you wanted to get to that data and you paid me $1 for that CT study or whatever. Because maybe you're aggregating a bunch of that and you're trying to use it for some kind of other purpose.
You just found those customizations to be inefficient on Ethereum.
We needed the price to be like 1/100th at that price.
Okay.
Like $1 per study. There's just too many studies. If you were to think about indexing roughly, all of the medical imaging studies, it just didn't make sense.
Got it.
That money's got to come from somewhere. And there just wasn't a budget for it. But if it had been 1/100th the cost, then it definitely would have been a budget for it, and they would have paid it.
So you looked for alternatives.
So we started looking for alternatives, and it looked like this thing that was being created called Chia might fit the bill.
Okay.
Because it was based on storage, it was based on hard drives. Like, I didn't understand what it was supposed to be doing. I, again, grossly misunderstood it at the time, but it didn't matter because it wasn't launched, so we ended up not being able to use it. But that was my exposure to Chia at the time. And so I kind of watched it and was waiting for it to go live, waiting for it to go mainnet. And then in 2020, they said, hey, we're getting ready to go mainnet launch. This is happening. Like, we're floating this baby out
They
there.
announced it years before.
They worked on it from 2017 to 2020, 3 years of nothing but solving math problems. So they're working on it for quite a while, and then in 2020 they said, "Hey, it's ready to go." So that was the point. I still stayed on their mailing list, so I got an email that said, "Hey, this thing's going live." So I started checking out the technology in earnest and understood it better, and said, "Hey, I really would like to get involved in
Can
this."
you pull up the Chia website?
I would really like to get involved in this mining, farming activity. So I started working on the plotting part of it, which is prepping a hard drive. And man, it was very difficult at the time. it was completely open source, so anybody could just download the software and start trying to do it. And it would take something like 12 to 14 hours to produce one plot file, which is 100 gigabytes. It was very difficult to do it. So I found it to be kind of a fascinating technical challenge. And as I got deeper and deeper and deeper into the technology, knowing what I knew in 2020 about Bitcoin and Ethereum, having had a lot of chance to get involved in crypto and Web3, I said, this is so far advanced from anything else that exists. I actually used it as the name for my podcast, because I said, this is the third coin. Being Bitcoin was the first, and then Ethereum being the second, like, major innovation that happened post Bitcoin, and then Chia being the next major advancement that happened after Ethereum. Now, there's be a lot of pushback that people would say, no, it's not that. So, there were coins that happened before that. But it's my personal perspective and the way that I like to think about it. I think it's so revolutionary that.
Do you still believe that?
I still do. I still do. And it's at a couple of different levels, right? If you think about this ability to have the energy usage of a proof of work chain to trend towards zero, that's fascinating. I mean, like, Bitcoin, it's trending towards infinity. It's trending towards using all the electricity on the planet. Like, that is the trend it's on. Like, and it has not gotten better. If you look at the hashing rate and the electricity usage of Bitcoin, it keeps going up. Now, as humans, we're finding very creative ways to not have it use all the electricity on the planet, because we're trying to use stranded energy. Like, there's a volcano and they just put a Bitcoin miner right on top of the volcano, and they're referencing the heat there. Or, they're taking methane that is stranded out in the middle of a farmer's field, and they're saying, well, it's better that we burn the methane than just let it go into the atmosphere, because that's what is it, 20 times worse than CO2. As a greenhouse gas. Methane is way worse. So you definitely want to burn it, like, versus just letting it escape into the air. So if you can put Bitcoin miners onto little burn bags of cows and their farts, whatever, you're going to make killing at it, because you're.
I can't tell if you're sarcastic or not.
I'm totally dead serious about that. Like, methane is a really bad problem. Like, it's the worst greenhouse gas that we have, and it's worse than carbon dioxide. So you really, really, really want to burn it.
Okay.
And they are using it. So, where you have an inability to pipeline natural gas, like, because we burn natural gas, like, we're the Saudi Arabia natural gas in the United States. So we use a lot of it, and we burn a lot of it, and it's cheap for us. But there's some places where it's hard to get the methane that's being emitted out of the planet to a pipeline where it can be used. So it's just vented or flared, burned. It's fascinating to have a blockchain that can have its energy usage proof of work trend towards zero, where Bitcoin is trending towards infinity. I said the only way that that's being mitigated is to find stranded energy and to start using that stranded energy and to transmute it into digital gold. That is a fascinating thing about the Chia network, right? Like, just that one part. If that's all you did, right? Imagine somebody came out and said to Michael Saylor, I solved Bitcoin's energy problem. It uses 1/10 the energy. He would be, oh, that's great. Like, somehow you've managed to do something fantastic. Chia didn't just use 1/110th, it's 1/100th, it's 1/1000th the energy of Bitcoin with the same security. It's massive.
So
it's
what's
like
kept it from being Solana or Cardano?
So a lot of blockchain technology takes several years for it to really get its legs underneath it. I mean, if you look at Ethereum, it didn't just come right out of the gate and rip and be like number two. It took time before enough people had coins, enough people were involved in it, and it made a name for itself. So I'd say the thing about Chia is it's less than 3 years old, right? We're coming up on our 3-year anniversary here in March, and that's an early phase for a crypto. So if you're hearing about it, you're hearing about it in very early days. You think about something like Cardano. Cardano's been around for a very long time. It's a top coin because it's been around forever. It was an early one, and the same thing with a lot of the top 100 cryptos. Like, there are new entrants into the game, but there's a lot of those that have been there for a very long time.
So what's the experience been like? And I don't know, maybe we can pick up then why you adopted Chia, and then maybe pick your story back up from where you left off with. All right, Chia's the you recognized there was no kind of all-in-one mining solution, right? You said that it was clumsy and.
Well, okay, so we spent a little bit of time talking about like Chia, my experience to it, 2020.
Yep.
That's how I first got into it.
Mm-hmm.
So I started plotting, realized it was kind of difficult, but fell in love with the technology.
Yep.
Not just because of its energy usage, but also because it was such a fascinating use of smart contract programming. And so I started to work with the technology and then started to see where it could be applied to solve real world problems. Like, because I've been solving real world problems using blockchain for quite a while. And I said, all right, like in my roster of all the things that I've been exposed to, do we now have technology that can help solve some of this stuff? And so I started working on different projects, and I actually found one that I was working with, and that was kind of my first big chance to work with Chia. I was working with this startup company based out of Colombia, and we were working on a lot of the Chia tech, and I found that there were things, because we were so early on it, that hadn't been built yet. So I started building up a lot of the technology that was missing from the ecosystem based on my experiences working with Ethereum.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked a lot with Ethereum, so I knew what the tool suite and what the programming suite should look like, and I found that none of those things existed on Chia. So I set about to start getting them going. So that was kind of my exposure to Chia in a very visceral way. When I first got connected with Dylan and started working on Evergreen, it was sort of this project that I had been working on, which looked like it was going to get a lot of traction, decided to go a different direction. And so now I had built a lot of stuff that could be applied towards some other Chia-based project. And it just so happened that Dylan was working on an at-home miner and had gotten some traction on it and said, hey, I think the technology you were building might be applicable to my project. Like, could you take a look? And I found him to be such a fascinating and capable founder that I wanted to work with him. So I said, let's take a bunch of this tech that I had built.
Is he also in Minnesota?
He's not. Nope. He was living in Arizona and has kind of been itinerant and transient. Like, so living in Arizona, and then he's been living out in California. And I think he's in San Francisco at this point. Like, he's doing the circuit out there right now. But like, we've kind of set up shop in California because we got connected with some other people that we really like that were, as part of the genesis of Evergreen. So as far as it as a technology, it's good for the security thing. It's also good for the smart contract programming. And so that's the reason I think it's such an interesting technology to use. As far as why does Evergreen use it, right? Like, oh, couldn't you just build a miner or something else? There's very few proof of work at-home mining ideas that you could think of that you can do that don't use any electricity.
Right.
It's just like, you can almost count them on one hand, the number that have ever been thought up by humanity. So if you want to build a device like this that doesn't produce any heat, doesn't produce any sound, and uses almost no electricity, like, there isn't just like, 12 options. Oh, let's choose this one. It's kind of like there's no other option. Like, this is it. Like, if you want to do it, it took the smartest people 3 years of just grinding on math to even come up with a way to make this work at all, period.
When did you start? Like, when did you sell your first miner? Or when did you get your first prototype? That kind of stuff.
So we sold the first unit of what we called the V2 miner. It was like October 31st of 2022.
Okay. So not even a year and a half.
Yeah, about a year and a half.
And did they just start selling pretty quickly?
Pretty much.
How did you real quick, can you take me through like the prototype stage and then like the marketing, and did you need some investment, or was this all bootstrapped with your own savings?
I definitely took some investment. Like, it was too big of an endeavor. So I guess this is an interesting unit, actually, because this is one of our 3D printed units. So I don't know if you can see this, but like, there's these little ridges. I'll just say,
okay,
you can take a look at it. So you can tell that's actually a 3D print, and we actually went to production with the 3D print, and then you can see how far advanced we took this. Here is the injection molded plastic. So this is a way more substantial way of doing the plastic. That 3D printing, that's great when you just are getting going, but once you want to scale it up, that starts to have some real scaling problems.
Because it's slow.
It's slow.
Yeah. You
And
can
expensive.
see the layering.
So even as good as it is, I mean, it's great. It's a really nice case. But, I mean, compare that to the injection molded plastic, it's night and day.
And then you need this is done overseas.
Yeah. Well, and that also requires a die. So, you have to make a piece of tool steel that you can squeeze that hot plastic into and make it into that form.
Right.
But you got to pay for that.
Yeah.
So it's not obvious when you should make the switch. So we started seeing like the orders pile up, and we're like, okay, we're never going to get out from underneath this pile of orders.
Where were they 3D printed?
Just in a variety of different places. Like
Okay.
it was a decentralized print. Like we just find people that could do it for us. So like we worked with a variety of different partners.
Okay.
Because no one 3D printing facility could handle our workload, so we had to go to a variety.
Okay.
So yeah, at the beginning, this is what we're doing. So in the early days of Evergreen, we're 3D printing cases, we're buying hard drives, and then in the guts of it, so this is actually the case for one of our hard drives. So it's kind of like all the internal parts. I kind of keep these around so I can show people. But there's one thing in here which is the SATA to USB converter board. So this board actually existed, and you could buy it, and we bought all of them. We completely bought every single one of these that existed out in the.
Have there been other supply chain issues in general?
Oh, for sure. Because
this?
think back to 2022.
Yep.
Like that was not the world's best time for supply chain. We're just coming out of COVID, and like the supply chains are just destroyed. They're absolutely a nightmare. To try and get any part that you might want was not an easy thing. And we suddenly have this, insatiable demand for our product. How are you actually going to pull that off? It was a huge challenge. So a lot of 2022 was us getting together as a team, figuring out how to build the software, creating the wallet, creating the mobile application, and then figuring out the first prototype for how this would all work, making the operating system work, and then bringing it together as a cohesive whole, and then getting to the point where we're ready to sort of show this baby to the world and start taking orders and then shipping units. Like that was 2022. So we, in less than a year, bootstrapped a hardware manufacturing company with a substantial software footprint and did it on limited investment. It was one of the most challenging startups that I've ever been involved in. It was incredibly rewarding, but it was a lot of work.
Was it 12-hour days, 6 days a week, that kind of thing?
7 days a week, yes.
Yeah.
It was like every single day. There were many days where I would just like work all day, and then next day I would just pick it right back up and keep working at it.
And did you just kind of roll with the next thing you needed to get done? Like, how did you structure the day?
So, having done a lot of startup companies, like I just know roughly the things that need to be done.
Kind of an instinct, just kind of a...
It's not an instinct. I mean, once you've done something a few times, you have experience doing it. It's like, when you start a startup company, hey, it needs some money, right? Well, I already have a network of people that I could potentially hit up with this idea. Where might I be able to go scare up some money? So that was some of the early thing that we needed to do, was just take on more substantial investment so we could do what we wanted to do. So fundraising was a big part of it. Then once we got some of the money in the door, knowing how to spend that money and what to spend it on and in what ways, right? So it was like, okay, we need to get software development going in a more substantive way. Let's get a couple of key hires. And who do you hire, and how do you get them involved in your product and actually get going in the right direction, right? Looking at what had already been built, right? What could be reused versus what do we need to refine or rewrite, start over on. So there was a lot of work in those early days of just the formulation of the company, and then finding money, and then spinning up the software development teams, and then spinning up the production of the units itself. Like each hard drive needs to be prepared. So there's software and effort that went into that. And we needed to buy the equipment that could do that as well. So we needed to have a certain amount of plotting capacity. Where were we going to do it? How are we going to get the electricity to do it?
Is there a lot of like laying it out, like a map, like kind of mapping the growth? Like, okay, now, because there's different parts of the company, the manufacturing and the software and the...
I'd say when you're in the early phases of a startup company, you have to pick which problems you want to solve when. There's some amount of mapping it out, but there's some amount of, you need to work on specific problems, and you have to keep working on it until you find the solution that seems like it's going to fit. And then you have to accumulate like kind of a mass of those So, for instance, like one of the early problems that we had to solve was how does the whole system work together? Like, what is the system's architecture?
Yeah.
Right? Because you have this unit and it's going to run in somebody's house. And then we didn't want to run the coin database on the device because it would have caused reliability issues. So, how are we going to make that work, right? Like, how do you do remote farming essentially on Chia? So we used a technology called a light farmer to do that, which means that you're connecting to somebody else who's going to give you the challenges for the network, and then you compute whether you have the block, and then you make the block, and then you submit it back to some full node. So part of that was the challenge of coming up with the whole systems architecture. What needs to exist inside the cloud? How does the wallet work? What is the infrastructure around the operating system? What is the operating system going to do? You know, because when you plug in a hard drive, like the operating system has to be able to detect that hard drive, know what to do with it, and then know how to incorporate that hard drive into the overall system and allow you to farm it. Like there's challenges to all of that. And we had to solve all of those problems and kind of figure out how to do software builds, how to release software to the field. There's a variety of different challenges.
You had to break ground or you had to this is a novel product.
Yes. And we had to write a lot of software. And we had to do it in a very efficient and short period of time because we didn't have a lot of runway.
We'll have the Chia bigwigs taken notice and
I think we're probably the biggest company that exists beyond Chia Network Incorporated.
Who's the founder? Cohen?
Bram Cohen and Gene Hoffman.
Have you been in touch with them?
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah. They're well aware
I'm
of
not
what we're doing.
surprised. Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, we're a big success story on this.
Was Chia an investor?
Chia provided us a cultivation grant. So
Okay.
they had a way that they were providing funds to projects that were working on top of Chia to encourage people to build using the technology. And we were a recipient, yes.
Got it.
But they didn't make a direct investment in our cap table. But there are people that are from the Chia community that definitely invested in Evergreen.
Okay. What is the headquarters for Evergreen?
So it's mostly based out of our manufacturing location. Like that's it. We've got like this hacker house in California that we took over. So there were some guys that we were working with, and they were working on a different kind of a manufacturing business. And so they had a lot of electronics and just like the stuff that you need to make a hardware company, soldering irons and just that nuts and bolts stuff that you need to be able to do, and to be able to make something like this. So we got connected with these guys, and they said, hey, why don't you set up shop here, do it out of the garage, and just sort of grew inside the garage. So we went from kind of just having a couple card tables set up to gutting the garage and retrofitting it to our needs for production, and then building our own data center in the living room. So it's like if you ever have a chance to visit that house, it's a pretty awesome experience to be in what is a real hacker house, because it has a data center, a manufacturing facility, and our offices we're really based out of that house in California.
Is it in the Bay Area?
No, it's northwest of the. Or no, wait. So it's northwest of LA. It's south of the Bay Area.
Okay.
About 3-4 hour drive from the Bay Area.
Okay. Well, just like MetaMask became the default, the most popular Ethereum wallet, do you see Evergreen as sort of just becoming the accessory, the wallet, just the thing that people who are involved in Chia,
So this one's a tough one. So I have a lot of experience with wallets and how to make that viable. The most successful wallets in Web3 have some sort of an exchange component, and that's largely how they fund themselves. If your wallet isn't doing that, it's hard to understand how you could continue to fund the development of a wallet unless it's somehow has a path to monetization. So when I thought about what we were doing for Evergreen, it wasn't that we set out to make the world's best wallet. We were making the easiest to use mobile application that allows you to interface with the device that we produced. That included a self-custody wallet. But I didn't set out to make the world's best Chia wallet because there's not a path to monetization for that. So it's a part of the overall ecosystem that we have a really good wallet, but I didn't just go out of my way to chase every degen DeFi feature that people were doing unless we had some way to justify that it should be something we were working on.
Yeah, I didn't probably word that very well. I wasn't trying to compare you directly to a wallet. I was just saying, like, there are certain products on Ethereum that have become sort of the default. Like, everyone on Ethereum has a MetaMask. Is it your hope that Evergreen becomes an accessory, a product that everyone on Chia has? If you're on Chia, you should have an Evergreen, and it's something where, yeah, it's just part of what you got. Like,
I don't think it's not an everyone. I think that there's a lot of what Evergreen's doing that has an appeal to a broad spectrum of people, both Web3 and people who are in the Chia ecosystems. There's a lot of people in Chia that would say to a friend, you should just buy an Evergreen miner, right?
whether you're using Chia or not.
Well, the person who's saying you should buy an Evergreen probably set up their own farm not with Evergreen, and that's totally fine. Because it's a very technical thing. I mean, think about it. Like, if you were to not use this product, you have to go buy some hard drives. You have to put them into some kind of an enclosure. You have to buy a computer. And then you got to set that all up. You got to install all this stuff. You got to do all of this stuff that, like, essentially we did for you. But you got to do that all on your own. So you have to have the technical expertise, the time, and the desire to do all of those things. So there's a lot of people who are in Chia who had the desire to do all of that stuff and did it before Evergreen even existed. And the people that did that, when they look at the amount of effort, time, and what they had to do to get that set up, they wouldn't go advocate that another person would do that. They'd just be like, oh, you should buy an Evergreen miner.
But if you're getting an Evergreen miner, you're using it to farm Chia.
Yes.
Right? You're not using it to mine some other token.
Well, I mean, you can get paid in a different token if you want. So
right.
It has a broader appeal at this point for that reason.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if you want to get Bitcoin in like a distributed non-KYC way, Evergreen's a path to doing that in your house. Like, where if you don't have access to stranded energy.
You just won't get the premium price because you have to convert your Chia to Bitcoin.
There's a friction there, and so it's. I'm not saying it's like the world's most efficient way to buy Bitcoin. The world's most efficient way to buy Bitcoin is to just go buy Bitcoin from somebody who already has it. You know, just like, here, take my money.
Yeah.
Like, buy it.
Yeah.
Like OTC style, like coin exchange, local Bitcoin. Yeah. That's the most efficient way. But like, if you want to do it without a risk, I mean, if you go into some room and you hand somebody some cash, then they bring a gun to the table and maybe you're getting robbed. I don't know.
Such a big appeal to, I think, crypto mining is when it's in a bull market, people just want the token, and they sometimes don't even pay attention to price. It's like, oh, I just want that. It's kind of like, I want that poster of that musician, that autographed poster. I want that baseball card. And it's like, well, how far are you going to drive to pick it up? How much money are you going to spend on gas? How much is it going to be worth? It's like, it almost doesn't matter. It's like, I just want that collectible. I want that thing because it's the like ideal that it's going to go way up in value. So I'm not sure how much people even care whether they're getting $6 of Chia after a month of mining or whether they're getting 60. I think they see a bull market and they think, they get dollar signs in their eyes, ironically, dollar signs, Chia signs, whatever, Bitcoin signs in their eyes.
I'm excited to hear like how that plays out once we're actually in a bull market, because like Evergreen was launched in the dregs of the worst bear market and has really only ever existed in the bear market.
All that was to say, how much does one get? If I buy one thing like the green setup, you've got one miner and one hardware. One hard drive. Thank you. And it's just on at my house. Like, can I expect $10 of Chia at the end of the month, or?
So it's entirely dependent upon the total amount of space that you have. So that's why the kits are all with varying number of hard drives. So the more hard drives you have, the more that you're going to earn. So a good touch point for this might be, like, let's say you've got 60 terabytes of space, right? So if you have 60 terabytes of space, you're going to earn something like 50 cents a day.
Okay, and how much is in that one unit?
So the unit that we had on the screen before, that's the Plus kit. So that unit, and it's changing over time because we've got the amount of compression that's on the drives. So we've been making it better over time.
Okay.
So when we first started selling the units, the hard drives were uncompressed. And you might ask, well, what does compression mean now? What is this all about? So it's kind of a technical thing within the world of Chia that when you fill up the drive with these plot files, because the drive is completely filled. Like if you were to get one of these units, it's not like you have access to this space and you can put your videos on it. You can't. Like their drives are completely filled with random cryptographic garbage that can only be used to secure the Chia network. It's not for user storage of data. So the drives come completely filled. And so the way that you put those plot files on and the formatting of those plot files has changed over the last couple years. So initially they were uncompressed, and then some really smart people that looked at how Chia plot files were created said, we can actually make these smaller with an energy trade-off. So if we sacrifice some of the energy efficiency of Chia, we can actually get a better efficiency of storage. And so there's been a balancing over time of this energy usage versus the efficiency of storage. So uncompressed is the most efficient way to do it from an electricity perspective. And then the more compression that you apply to the plot files, the more energy you need to be able to make use of those. So it's like there's an in-between state of pure proof of space and time, which is what Chia does, versus proof of work, because you can actually emulate proof of space and time just using a graphics card. So like you can do Chia with just a graphics card, which is kind of a weird idea, but it is possible to do it. So certain types of graphics cards, they can emulate a certain amount of space, but space is more efficient from a cost perspective. So it's like if you do it that way, you're not competing at the same level as people that are doing it with hard drives.
Okay.
So you're asking a question that it seems like I'm not answering it well, but I'm trying to answer it in a way that like makes sense, because it's like, well, what does that unit actually get you, right? It depends on which of the units you're buying. Because we buy what are called C3 plots, and then we sell C5 plots, and then we sell, like even more advanced compression plot files. And so the products are starting to get a little bit harder to easily talk about, like how much are you going to earn per day.
Okay.
And it really has to do with, well, how much are you willing to spend in electricity? And now you need to start doing some math to figure out exactly that. But like a good rule of thumb is what I said, which is about 60 terabytes is getting you something like 50 cents per day right now. Now, if the price of Chia goes way up, then that changes again. Like right now, Chia's been staying at around $30. And so if Chia went to $60, then you'd be getting $1 a day.
Right.
No additional investment in your hardware or anything. It's just like that's just what you're earning because you're earning in Chia. Like that's how the rewards are calculated.
And when you say 60 terabytes, that's a 60 terabyte hard drive
of
hard drive space?
So we don't sell 60 terabyte hard drives. Like the hard drives are usually 18 to 20 terabytes. So it'd be like somewhere between 2 and 3 drives.
Got it.
Based on the amount of compression that's applied to the drive.
Got it. Yeah, so from a purely economic, it's going to take some time to get your investment back.
So yeah, that's usually what people would refer to as like return on investment, right? So return on investment has a couple of components to it. First off is like, okay, if you're just calculate this saying, if I were to buy this gear and then run it for some amount of time and I collect up the rewards and I never sell the rewards and then I sell them all at the very end, how much have I made?
Right.
Or every time you get the rewards, are you selling at the current coin price?
Right. I understand, and I understand. There's other rewards, like you're helping secure the network. You're part of the network community.
Not from like a selfish miner perspective. Like the only thing you're getting is the rewards for like running this unit. Like forget the ancillary stuff. We're talking nuts and bolts here. Like how much money am I going to make? Right. It's the rewards you get as a result of getting paid from the pool because you're participating in the pool. But there are factors that go into that calculation of what is the return on investment, right? The other thing is you could contemplate at some point selling off all of your gear. Like the hard drives are worth something, the computer is worth something. And so at some point you could say, well, I want out of this. I want my money back and I want my profits, and so I'm going to sell everything.
Is there a secondary market of these miners?
People have definitely sold them
on eBay or something?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, you're creating a whole economy.
There's a whole economy. And actually, to talk about collectibles, too, one thing that's involved with each unit is we created a digital collectible that goes with it. So the box art is also delivered to you on a card. So you get one of these cool collectible cards, comes with it. And then on the back is what's called a Chia offer file. So this is actually the NFT of this art that allows you to have this NFT collectible in your wallet. And then
is that Mars?
Yeah, this is actually a picture from Mars.
Okay.
Yep. So we called this one Dune because
it's ironic that it's evergreen on a planet with no plants.
Well, we really liked space stuff. So like one of the batch 3 themes was like a picture of space.
Okay.
And we called that the space theme. And then we had like one other one that was like some cool translucent looking mushrooms. This is a very rare card. Like, when Evergreen is a huge company, like there's only like 100 of these made. They're extremely rare.
I got one of those NFTs, did I not?
I believe that you did.
Yeah, you gave me one, and I got my name, Brandon. I think Brandon Ferdig .xch. Is that what it is?
Yep.
Yeah, on the name service. Yeah, that she has its own equivalent of Ethereum's name service, right?
Yeah, and actually another interesting development that's happening on Chia is there's a group that's building what they're calling the decentralized internet on top of Chia. Probably too big for a topic for this conversation, but like Chia does enable the building of certain pieces of technology that you really couldn't contemplate in any other way.
So there's some big stuff happening with Chia on Chia. A lot of developers, like you said, a healthy ecosystem. Hardware, NFTs,
World Bank,
yeah,
carbon trading,
right. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean that's something to pay attention to if you're a general crypto fan.
Yeah, and I would say this for people that are looking at the coin price, it's interesting. Not that many coins have ever gone through this type of price action. So usually what happens with a coin is it comes out and it's worth nothing.
Yeah.
And it just sits at nothing for a long time.
Yep.
And then it finds its niche for some period of time and it moons, and then it falls, and then it goes back to some, nominative thing which is more than its original price but not anywhere near its high, and never recovers. That's the most common chart that you'll see in crypto, is like nothing, pump, and then almost at zero but not zero, and then just hangs on with this weird lifeline. The chart for Chia looks like this. It comes out of the gate swinging at like $10,000 per coin and just rockets to zero. So in Chia, if you were to have bought in on any previous date, you're almost guaranteed to be underwater on your investment, and probably something to the tune of like 90 or 99% down on your investment. Because on Chia, we're on a cycle, an inflationary cycle that's similar to Bitcoin, and we're coming up on the first halvening of Chia. So same as in Bitcoin, where a large amount of the coins were distributed during a relatively short period of time. When you have that kind of inflationary pressure, you really wouldn't expect to see the coin price be sustained, because think about that for a minute, right? Like market cap. What does market cap mean? It means this is the total value of this network in some sense, right? So let's say that the total market cap of Chia is worth like, I don't know, $300 million or something, right? It's less than $1 billion, like as far as, like all cryptos go. And that's pretty small. If you're adding a certain amount of coins every single day, right? Because you're inflating the supply, because you're producing a lot of coins, then if the market cap is going to stay the same, then the coin price should go down. But if the coin price is staying stable and you're producing a lot of coins, the actual market cap is going up. So market cap is a really important thing to look at, like in a crypto, right? Like, is the market cap growing, and what is the coin price doing?
I see.
So if the coin price is stable and the market cap is growing, that means it's getting bigger and it's going through whatever it's going through on its inflationary cycle. And so if you look back on Bitcoin, these halvening cycles are really when you started to see price appreciation in Bitcoin, because there's less coins available, right? If you think about a block reward of 50 Bitcoin, right, that's a lot. Like they were producing a lot of Bitcoin in the early days. And then when it went from 50 to 25, it's like, oh, okay, now we're producing a lot less Bitcoin per unit time. Like if every 10 minutes you're producing 50 Bitcoin, think about that for a minute. Like that's a lot of inflation. There's a lot of Bitcoin. Like it's not hard to put your hands on them. And they're not worth a whole lot. But then when the supply gets constrained to now you're producing 25 every 10 minutes, and then you go to 12 every 10 minutes, and then you go to 6, and you're starting to have a lot more people that have them in their hands, and some people don't want to sell them, whatever. You start to see how these market dynamics can change. So I would expect to see the Chia market dynamics start to change at least this year for sure, because we're going to go through that first halvening cycle. So Chia is going to get rarer and harder to get, and then as you move another 3 years out, it's even going to be more along that same line, because at some point you have like 70 or 80% of all the Chia that's ever going to be produced has already been produced.
So are you still putting in 12-hour days, 7 days a week, or is things kind of leveled off?
So startup companies kind of change over time. It's like you go through phases where you're building a product, and that requires a certain amount of effort and energy, and then you're going through scaling is a different kind of activity. So we're at the point where we're ready to scale the business. So we're kind of facing a different problem, and we need to do something that is in a different skill set. Right? It's marketing, right? What we need to do now is to get more eyeballs on our project and on the technology that we have found to be very successful and that people really like. So finding those opportunities to like get the word out and market is not as much my skill set, right? I'm not a marketer. Like I am a software technologist and a software builder and a developer. So like those are the things that I'm really, really good at. So if we're saying, well, we've found that we've completed a lot of the stuff that we needed to complete, then, the things that I'm really, really good at, I'm not able to contribute in the same ways anymore. So it's not the same.
I see. Yeah.
It's different now.
Yeah, so you need to lean on outside or others.
Yeah, at this point now we're starting to work on more marketing and building the customer base and getting it in front of more people. And it's actually good timing, because if we're on the cusp of a bull market, then and the coin price starts ripping and we go through a halvening, there could be a ton of interest in Chia, and we could find ourselves in that situation where like suddenly we have a lot of interest in our product.
So how do people find you? I'll put the website on the screen, but
so evergreenminer.com, that is the place to buy it. It's the only place we sell it. We don't really sell through channels. Like we're starting to experiment with that a little bit, but like that's the best place to go. It's just evergreenminer.com.
Okay.
And then there's just a website there to buy it. You just click the buy button and we'll send it to you in a box. Easy as that.
Yeah, and then just plug it in, and
then once it comes to your house, you just take it out of the box, plug the cables in the only place where they go, and turn it on.
Get it going on your app.
Download the app, set it up, and then a couple of taps, and it's working short order.
Is there do you have like customer support and all that stuff?
Yep.
Yeah. So people have questions, they email, and
It's rare in the Web3 world to have a company that will actually do customer support and really talk to you and help you. But yes, we have very good customer support.
Kudos to you. Good for you.
So we have a Discord community where you can come in, you can talk to the team. We also have like just a little widget that's on the site. You can interface with our customer support team. And then if you have trouble setting it up and you can't figure it out, we actually make it so that you can book a meeting, and then we'll just jump on a Zoom call with you and help you set it up, figure out what's going wrong.
That's wonderful customer service.
Yeah.
Huh.
And it's been great to get connected to our customers. I mean, I'd say of everything that we've done, having a strong customer base and a strong connection to our customers has been a differentiator for us, 100%. Like, if we're going to say this is the easiest thing in crypto and we stand behind that, then you know that you're working with a company that's real and that isn't just going to go away overnight. Like, we're going to continue to be here, support the product, and make it better over time.
Well, gosh, thanks for representing Minnesotan entrepreneurs and the Minnesota blockchain and Web3 world, Grant, with all this. Keep up the great work, and I don't know, maybe we'll see you in 15 years.
Well, I really appreciate the
We'll be
support.
grayer. We'll be back on cable access. I don't know. No, we'll have some sort of we'll be in some kind of metaverse when I interview you the next time.
Yeah, maybe we'll see how it goes next time, but might be the thing. We're in some sort of a 3D holographic projection of ourselves in the metaverse, and then we'd have virtual people like listening in real time.
And it'll be like, remember when we first interviewed each other? When we first were on the show, Brandon? Oh yeah, I was running for state rep in the United States. Remember the United States? Oh yeah, the nation state. Remember those?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, countries. Oh, that was a good. Yeah, that was.
But yeah, I really do support the Minnesota blockchain. You guys have been fantastic. We were a recipient of the pitch night competition, which was fun.
You won.
Yeah, that wasn't something given to us. We did earn it, but yeah, we appreciated the fact that it was put on and we had a chance to talk about what we're doing, and love that I've been able to talk about entrepreneurship in Minnesota and what we're capable of doing in this state. It's a unique place to get things going, but it's a lot of fun, especially when we have these long winters, cold winters.
There's just good people and talent here. We don't have the best. I'll just throw it out there. We're not Texas and Wyoming with these governments that are like, what do you need us to do? They're just not as interested here. Okay, but we're still a very talent-rich state and hardworking people. And so we've got individuals like yourself, and we're trying to find them all, or as many as are interested in being known, and highlight the work they're doing. And then I see you doing that for Chia, frankly, right? Like, I bet 4 times as many people in our state know what Chia is because of you.
Probably. Right. I mean, if you look at the number of people that we've reached, just
you were at
from
a spotlight meetup, our pitch night, and just
the law
talking
conference.
to people. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, you had a heck of a good year with us.
Yeah,
2023.
2023.
You were featured a lot in those photos of our look back on 2023. Here's Grant at the spotlight meetup. Here's Grant at pitch night. Here's Grant at the law conference. Yeah, that was you and Evergreen were a great example of what we want to do. I said that very thing at their holiday party. And now this is the 4th appearance, you could say. So, yeah, I really thank you for all your hard work.
And thank you for bringing the community together. It's it's great to be able to talk about it, but if there's nobody there to see it or hear it, it's less impactful. So definitely have appreciated the connections that I've been able to make with the the times that I've engaged in the community and been there, hearing about all the other cool stuff everybody else is working on, and giving us a chance to talk about what we're working on.